I'm Kimberly Dutton, and it is July 11th, 2008. Today I am interviewing Doug Goodman. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing just fine. Please tell me how you came to Ashland.
Wow, how I came to Ashland. Well, I'm now the chief of police in the Ashland Police Department. I just became the chief on July the 1st, 2008. But I joined the Ashland Police Department August 1st, 2007. I came on board as the deputy chief, the rank of captain. And it was part of a succession plan to come in to replace then outgoing Captain Ralph Johnson, who was retiring after 31 years of service. And as soon as I came in, my single solitary task was to get the agency nationally accredited, which we did in about a month and a half.
Were you living in Ashland before you joined the police department?
Well, I've been working and living in Hanover County for about 15 years. I started with the Hanover County Sheriff's Office as a patrol deputy in 1993 after graduating from Virginia Tech. And my wife and I now live in the Atlee-Elmont area of Hanover County. And again, worked for Hanover County Sheriff's Office for about 14 years. And then the wonderful opportunity to come work in the center of the universe presented itself, so I couldn't turn it down.
How does it feel to work in the center of the universe?
I tell you, it's really nice. This is a wonderful town. It's a very diverse town, which I really embrace. It's very family oriented, and it's a tight knit community. I really enjoy working here. Everyone knows everyone.
Ashland is known for being a small, safe community. Why do you think so?
Well, I think it's safe because you have community involvement. You have a populace here, a citizenry, and also a business community that's not afraid to get involved. And a lot of communities, towns, counties, cities, whatever you want to say, where communities have become apathetic, that's when the safety and security of the community begins to decline at a rapid rate. So as long as we keep a partnership between the law enforcement agency, the campus, the Randolph-Macon community, that is, the business community, and our citizenry, I feel pretty confident we're in good shape.
How does the presence of the college affect the police department?
I tell you, I think the college is a wonderful part of our community. I mean, let's face it, it's part of our history. It's one of the main reasons that Ashland is here today, along with the RFP line. But I think the college, with its 1,100 students and 100 faculty, is a really a good centerpiece for us. We have a great relationship with it, and I think, unfortunately, it's very easy for some of the students who aren't from Ashland, who may come here from other states or other areas in Virginia, or even other countries for that matter, to feel a little bit separate from the town, when bottom line, they're counted in population. So I'm really looking forward to increasing that relationship between the police department and the students, because bottom line, the students are our citizens as well.
What about student behavior? Are there any instances of college mischief? Well,
it's anytime you have a college campus, you're going to have folks who are growing up. You have folks who are exploring, who may be trying to find their own identity. But you're not going to have any more problems than any other segment of the population. The biggest thing you have with campuses is you have a density. You have a lot of folks living in a very small amount of space, and so sometimes that can cause its own problems inherently. But I think as college campuses go, Randolph-Macon is run by a administration that sets the tone for good behavior. And we, again, work very well with campus safety, and as well as the president's office and the dean of students to ensure that the best is done for the good of the order and the good of the school.
So what is your relationship with campus safety?
Oh, we get along great with campus safety. Maurice Kiley, Dean Catherine Hall, we just have a wonderful relationship. You pick up the phone anytime we need to. We have a lieutenant in our agency, James Shellhorse, who works directly with Mr. Kiley and developing plans for football games, graduation events, basketball events that the campus may sponsor or may host that aren't necessarily related to the student population, but again, events we want to be well informed of and part of.
What do you feel about the relationship between the town and the college?
Again, it's inseparable in my opinion. You've got the campus, even though it's fairly insulated. It's really unique because the campus is right at the center of town, but it's fairly insulated. Most people don't go through the campus unless they're part of the campus community. Henry Street bisects the campus, running north and south, but most people, even if they're traveling Henry Street, they don't stop. So I think the relationship there is integral to have an open relationship between the town and especially the president's office. And from what I've seen, that's there.
So do you know anybody who's gone to the college?
My minister, Tommy Nance, he graduated from Randolph-Macon back in the late 60s. One of my professors at VCU just recently finished my master's program, Robin Lax. She is a recent alum of she did her undergraduate here at Randolph-Macon. So I know a handful of people, and if I tried to name them all, I'd leave somebody out, and that's the last thing I want to do. But some very important people in my life have been graduates of Randolph-Macon, and like I said earlier, I did not have the distinct honor and privilege of coming to Macon. I decided to go out to Southwest Virginia to Virginia Tech, but it is a fine school.
And what about the events here at Randolph-Macon?
How so?
Do you attend any of the athletic events?
Usually the events I've attended have been in a blue and gray uniform. And it's been good. The Hampton-Sydney football game this past fall, I attended not because I needed to be here, but because I wanted to be here. And that was a fun event, and we had very, very few problems when you consider the size of that event and how many people were here. It was a wonderful event. We had a good time. But I've attended a couple of the musical events here on campus. Some of the cultural events. Yes.
Tell me some more about your neighborhood that you're living in right now.
My neighborhood. Well, I don't live in the town of Ashland, but I live just outside of the town of Ashland. My family and I live in Atley-Elmont, and we moved there back in 2001 to have a neighborhood where we were on a more secluded street where my children could grow up on a street where they could ride their bikes and play in safety and security, and that's what I want to provide for every citizen in the town of Ashland, a place where their kids can go out and play and feel safe.
Have you seen any major changes in the town?
I think the town is evolving. It may be in incremental steps in certain points of the year, and it may be in a rapid evolution at other points. I think the town is quickly becoming a hub of commerce in the central Hanover area, just as it really was when it originally started as a vacation town and a college town. It was the hub of commerce. Everyone came to Cross's Market and Cross's store to get their wares. I think it's going to continue to go that way.
What do you feel about the businesses here?
Oh, the business community is fantastic. They're a wonderful supporter of the police department. And I think that the businesses that we have in town all serve a very good purpose, and they provide goods and services to the town and also those that are surrounding in the county. And I think there's even a few stores that draw folks from outside of Hanover County and outside the Richmond metro area, and I think that's wonderful for the commerce of the area. But I've had nothing but great experiences with the businesses in the town.
Do you have any favorite stores?
Any favorite stores? Wow. I tell you, I always like going into Ace Hardware, and it sounds funny. But whenever you go into Ace Hardware, Robert Treywick, who's the owner and manager there, whether it's Robert or whether it's one of his folks, you're not in the door more than 5 feet, and you have someone who is rushing up to you in a Ace Hardware shirt asking what they can do for you. What can they show you? Do you need any help finding something? And I tell you, in the world of big box retailers, nothing against big box retailers because they serve a very valid purpose and very valiant purpose as well. But it's nice to be able to walk into a store and get that old-fashioned service as well. And I think there's so many places like that in Ashland. Most of the businesses along the railroad tracks are wonderful, and customer service is key to those folks. I mean, you don't spend much time in their store without being greeted. In any of the shops along the railroad tracks as well, and I think you'll find that in many of the stores in Ashland. But again, Ashland Ace has probably got to be one of my favorites.
Do you have any special memories from any of their stores?
Well, I think it's I'm still forming a lot of my memories. I came here as a child a lot, and unfortunately, I was so young as a child that, some of my memories are just are surrounding more the sights and sounds, trains and going up and down the interstate and stopping to eat and things along those lines. So a lot of my memories of Ashland now are still forming. And so I may be one that's not providing you with a whole lot of background information, but more looking towards the future of what I have to build.
What do you think the future holds for Ashland?
I think Ashland is going to continue to be a wonderful bedroom community of the Richmond metro area. I think you're going to see Ashland continue to attract industry and commerce. And I think you're going to continue to see Ashland grow into a wonderful community as it is now, just maybe a little bit bigger. Population is going to continue to grow. I imagine we'll be at the 10,000 mark within the next 5 years, if not earlier. And I think what you're also going to see is Ashland, the challenge that we're also going to see is maintaining the small town atmosphere that we have, because I think so many people desire that right now. You've got living in the city, you've got living in the suburbs, and you have living in rural areas. But nowhere in the Richmond metro area do you have living in a town. And if you look around Virginia, you'll see so many different locations. There's a neighborhood being built up in Caroline that's being built as a town. It's not a cul-de-sac neighborhood. It's being built as a town. And I think so many people now are desiring that intimacy with their community. I think Ashland is going to continue to grow with folks who are just looking to get away from the city or get away from the suburbs or move in from the rural areas. Again, just to have that intimacy, to be able to get out and walk to the library or walk to the grocery store or walk to the ice cream shop. So I think you're gonna see Ashland continue to grow with new residents that's what they're looking for in life.
Who do you think are some of Ashland's most colorful characters?
Other than me? Ashland's most colorful characters. Wow, that is a really hard one, because Ashland has a lot of colorful characters, no doubt. You have so many people that are involved. It's hard to really narrow down one. I think one of the most colorful characters, and unfortunately he's passed now, but I considered him, and to a certain degree still do, definitely, as much as you can, but Jay Pace. And Jay died a few years ago. He was the editor of the Herald Progress, and when I was the PIO for the Hanover Sheriff's Office, the Public Information Officer, Jay and I would have many long talks about current events, incidents that happened in the county. And I remember during Hurricane Isabel, Jay was one of the few people in the media that actually had my home telephone number. And during Hurricane Isabel, the very few times I actually was able to go home, I recall Jay calling me just to kind of get a status report on what was going on, and I was comfortable enough with a man of his status in the community calling me in my personal number. One of those things that most police officers hold close to the vest and never give out. But I had no problem with Jay Pace, because he was a man of integrity, and he was just he was one that could be very serious, but then as always shown at the Ashland variety shows, could just show that wild side and show that colorful character. Of course, now we have the statue over at the plaza of Jay, and every now and then I'll go sit with Jay. Watch the ball turn and go sit with Jay and have a little quiet moment. But there are so many other colorful characters. I think you've got a lot of folks in Ashland. A lot of the youth in Ashland as well. You've got Dave Kliz, who runs around with his headset on, doing his running blog and his running. I forget the term. Gosh, I'm technologically inept when it comes to that. But podcast. I guess that's the word. Yeah, and Dave does his podcast, and I know Dave very well, and I know people probably see Dave running around a lot, and he's got his blog on the Townhound website. Lori Foley is another one who I have just become to adore, because she is just so involved in the community, and of course she runs the Townhound website, and she's just she's got the pulse of the community, no doubt about it.
Do you have any interesting stories about on the job?
This is a really unique community, and I could go on for days about different incidents or different events and things like that. But one thing I've realized about Ashland is there are no secrets in Ashland. So for me to try to relay an incident or an interesting story, even using fake names or aliases, people would figure out what that story was pretty quickly. So I don't think it's real fair for me to go into to airing stories even with aliases and such like that, because there are really no secrets in Ashland, and just to be confidential in that realm is probably where I need to go. But I tell you, it's we've seen a lot of interesting things in Ashland. One of the things that the Ashland Police Department has to deal with quite often is events that come through town that we really don't have a whole lot of control over. Might be folks that are traveling up Route 1, bike tours that are traveling up Route 1 that start in faraway states and end in faraway states, and that we have to deal with. And we're usually able to get those folks through, and with very little impact on our motoring public as well. But there's always something to do, and it's always busy. We're doing our best to, again, make Ashland as that small town.
How did the interstates affect your patrolling?
Well, I tell you, that is a really good question. I'm glad you brought that up, because I-95 carries upwards of 80,000 vehicles a day going both northbound and southbound, and sometimes on some days it feels like half of those vehicles come into Ashland, to dine, to stay the night, or just to pass through. Especially if there's an accident on interstate, our fair town becomes a logjam real quick. But where a lot of agencies can plan for their police needs just based on their population, and our population right now is about 7,400. So the number of police officers we have per 1,000 population, which is how it's measured, is very much in line with the average for the Eastern Seaboard, as measured by the Federal Bureau of Investigations. They do a compilation of law enforcement personnel. In fact, we're a little below the average. But when you consider the fact that Ashland has over 1,100 hotel rooms, and on a busy weekend we could fill up every one of those motel rooms, we may have just increased our population by 75% in one weekend. So Interstate 95, it can be both a blessing and a cause for problems, because a lot of the town's revenue comes from folks who are traveling. Folks who are stopping to get fuel here in Ashland, stopping to eat in one of our fine establishments, or lodging. And with the fuel crisis that's going on right now, we're all kind of really leery and seeing, is that going to stop folks from coming and visiting our town? But we keep an eye on interstate and the locations around the interstate, because unfortunately the criminal element does use I-95. It is the major north-south corridor from Key West all the way up to Maine, and it has long been known as a corridor for the transportation and of narcotics. And even though a narcotics being transport up 95 may have anything to do with Ashland, they may stop to get gas in Ashland and commit a crime while they're here. Or you may have a criminal who's just traveling through and takes the opportunity to commit a crime. An opportunity may present itself. I'll give you a prime example. Was someone at a restaurant who may leave their car unlocked and their purse on the front seat. Well, they may come out from a restaurant and their purse was no longer on the front seat. And it was probably a person who was just passing through, who saw the opportunity to get a little extra gas money. But now, instead of just a little extra gas money, we've got identity theft, because the person's using their credit card. They may set up a bank account, so it's just a snowball. So, like I said, the interstate is again a wonderful lifeline, but it also brings problems that other jurisdictions don't have to deal with. So it's a balancing act for us.
Does the town seem to be sheltered from the interstates? As far as crime goes?
I don't think sheltered is a word you can really use. I think what you have is several corridors in the town. You have the historic district, of course, which we all know. We have the campus. We have the residential district, which pretty much everything west of Route 1 is pretty much our residential district. We do have some residences that are east of Route 1, but a lot of that corridor that's east of Route 1 is your Interstate 95 travel corridor. It's where a lot of your hotels are. It's where a lot of your restaurants are that folks are getting off. Your filling stations. One of the bigger questions we get is where's Cracker Barrel? And pointing people towards the Cracker Barrel as well. So if there is an insulator, it's Route 1. If there's an insulator or a buffer from 95, it's Route 1, because a lot of folks that get off of 95 never come any further west than Route 1, because all the hotels are east of Route 1. Most of the filling stations. I say all the hotels. You've got the Henry Clay Inn. You've got a couple of hotels on Route 1 itself. But for the most of the motoring public on Interstate 95 that's not familiar with the historic part of Ashland, they're not going to venture very far from the interchange. Just like you or I, if we were traveling, you're not going to venture very far from the interstate if you're traveling too, because you want to be able to get right back on the interstate the next morning and keep on driving, or after you finish your meal. So if there is an insulator, it's probably Route 1.
That's very interesting. What about the train? How does that affect your job?
Well, the train is the train tracks. Again, the town was founded on the train tracks, and it's a very important part of our economy, especially when folks can get on the train in Ashland and travel to points north, south, and east. But we have 20 cargo trains a day, and then we have at least 20 Amtrak trains a day, passenger rail. 10 of those Amtrak trains are local, Richmond to Fredericksburg, Richmond to DC, DC to Newport News, that kind of thing. And then 10 of those trains are long-haul trains that run from, so points up in the New England area down to the far south. So those are things that again, it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act between the trains that are moving down the tracks that show a lot of respect for the town of Ashland. They slow their speeds down when they're coming into town. The town is a quiet zone where the only horns that are used are at the crossings at Vaughan Road and at Ash Cake. I think we have a really good relationship between the rail traffic and the motoring public and the pedestrians. And one of the things that we've started doing, in fact, we did it this year, is getting brochures and letters out to the parents of all the elementary students. We did that in the last week with the blessing of the Hanover County Public Schools and the town manager's office, to put it in every parent's hand, just a quick brochure letter from us that just gave some tips about how to be safe around trains. Something that I've always known that it takes a freight train a mile to stop. I can't tell you why I've known that, but I know I've known that since I was a child. I don't know if I learned it in school or whether I learned it because I had a CSX conductor that lived across the street from me when I was growing up, but I've always known that. And that's something that we really need. We're really starting to work on through crime prevention and through just, again, notifying parents, doing some public relations to let folks know how important the train is to the town, but also, it takes a little care to be around the trains.
What are some of the other safety tips?
Well, one of the bigger safety tips right now we share, now you're referring specifically to trains or just safety tips in general?
The trains.
Well, we try to share with folks, if you see the train coming, don't try to attempt to cross. Most the motoring public are going to, they're going to heed that warning. 99.99% of the motoring public, when the gates go down, they're not going to try to go around the gates. Most of the folks in Ashland are familiar. It's a double track. You may not be able to see the train, on one track, but there may be another one on the other track. We've had an accident here recently where a gentleman who had unfortunately had a little too much to drink tried to cross the tracks at an unauthorized location. It wasn't a crossing. And unfortunately got stuck. Was able to, fortunately, he and his passenger exit the vehicle before the train hit the vehicle. But still, that's one of those rare exceptions. One of our concerns has just been, folks that, and it's not so much as a concern, it's just an education point of making sure that that our younger folks understand that, they need to cross at the designated crosswalks that the CSX in the town has put up, and they need to have a parent with them. And then if they see a train, then they need to wait for the train to pass, because again, it does take up over a mile for many freight trains to stop. The Amtrak trains have a little bit better stopping distance, but still, one way or the other, it's a big moving object. And so we just want to make sure that all of our young people understand to show respect for the rail traffic. Those are the big things that we're trying to impart.
Do you know of any stories of any interesting characters stepping off the train?
Every now and then, we will get calls, and I say every now and then, and that is probably a very true statement. It's maybe once every quarter we will get reports of, usually it's teenagers who are trying to run away from home or trying to escape for a little bit, that get off the car in Ashland, off of a freight car. They pop the train, and then we end up catching up to those kids on every time and calling mom and dad. They're usually from states up north, and mom and dad come down to get them. And we'll take care of them until mom or dad can get here. But that's about the most interesting stuff we have of people getting off the train. Like I said, the Amtrak passengers couldn't be better citizens that travel Amtrak. And we have very, very, in fact, I can't even think of any problems we've had with any interesting characters coming off the Amtrak trains.
Do you use the train services?
I have not yet, but I plan to in the future. My son is interested in it, and I plan to hopefully take a trip from Ashland to Fredericksburg and maybe have lunch and then turn around and come back to Ashland in one day and just try to make it a day trip. We'll see. Of course, the Santa train runs every fall now. Now, that's Jim Donlan's creation, who owns Traintown Toys and Hobbies down on the Historic District, and that is a very popular event, and he'll be selling tickets in another couple of weeks for that, which runs every I believe it's late November, early December, and that runs from Ashland down to Williamsburg and then back again.
Do you know anybody who works for the train right now? The station?
No, I don't know anyone personally that works at the train station, other than, again, our fine folks, the town employees that work over at the visitor station and a visitor center, who definitely provide that wonderful ambassadorship to folks who are visiting. But I grew up across from a gentleman who was a CSX engineer and conductor for years. His name was Doug Lee. And he was like a surrogate grandfather to me, and he is a great guy. He still lives in the same house across the street from where I grew up down in Varina, and just a fantastic guy. And so I have a great deal of admiration, and kind of sentimental feeling every time I see a CSX train, because it reminds me of the good memories I have of that wonderful neighbor growing up.
What do you do for recreation in Ashland? What
I do for recreation in Ashland? I'd like to say I run a lot. But I hadn't been able to run as much as I wanted to. Hopefully that's going to change here real soon. I do a lot of biking, a lot of road biking. My kids love Poor Farm Park. We will come up on a Saturday, and they think Poor Farm Park is just the best place in the world to go hiking. They like to go down and throw rocks in the creek at the base of Poor Farm Park. And so we will go to Poor Farm Park on a Saturday morning and then come back. And quite often we'll have breakfast at the campus and Estes. Or we'll stop at downtown and get ice cream cone or something along those lines. But everything, and right now in my life, because I have young children, pretty much our social lives revolve around things that will entertain the kids.
How do you like Estes?
Oh, I think it's great. I'll be honest with you, based on the food that I had in college, I'm not quite sure that the current college community knows what real college food is, because this food is pretty good, actually, I think.
What are the major gathering places in Ashland?
Oh gosh, you got the coffee and tea. The library is a wonderful gathering place. I don't think I've ever seen a library that's quite as busy as the Gillis Library in downtown Ashland. I really don't. But you got the coffee and tea. You got the library. The skate park is a pretty big gathering place for the youngsters, for the teenagers, and they have a great time. Of course, that's right behind the police department, and hopefully that. Our presence there maintains a safe environment. They feel safe. They can come. Parents can feel safe that their kids are coming there. Puffer Belly Park is a place for a lot of folks to gather as well. And of course, there's multiple points on campus that a lot of the campus community congregates.
What about town events such as street parties?
Oh, that very true. That's a wonderful event. In fact, we have one coming up next weekend. The street parties have been a lot of fun for a lot of people, and that's one thing that Ashland really has that a lot of communities don't, and I think that's really the brainchild and a lot of work put on by a lot of folks. But I think from what I understand, town manager Charles Hartgrove has really been a driving force behind a lot of these recreational events and cultural events. You've got the street parties, you have the Bluemont concert series. I can just go on and on, but there's always something to do in Ashland. If you are bored in Ashland, you're not looking hard enough, right? If you're, especially if you're a young person, Ashland, old person, you're an adult with small children. If you get bored in Ashland, it's not because there's nothing to do. There's always something to do in Ashland.
Have you attended any of the parades?
Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, my family and I just marched in the 4th of July parade last week. We were in the bike patrol portion of that parade, and my daughter and my son decorated their bikes in the grand red, white, and blue style, and so we rode down Railroad Avenue with them, and we had a good time there. And of course, I drove one of our town police cars in the Christmas parade, the Old Town Holiday Parade that occurred last November. And I've been part of watching some of the other parades, like the homecoming parade and things along those lines.
Can you describe who takes part? What kind of organizations take part in these parades?
Well, I tell you, the Christmas parade, the Old Town Holiday Parade, is put on every year by the Ashland Kiwanis Club, and what a fabulous organization they are, and they are very well organized. We work with them hand in hand. It's one of those days where every Ashland police officer on the payroll works on the same time, that same 3-hour window. Everyone is working because we want to make sure that the event is safe for the pedestrians and the folks who are watching the event, but also safe for the folks that are participating in the event. And so we have a big presence there on the parade day. The 4th of July parade, the Anne Arundel Arts and Activities Center, they're just fabulous people, and that is a great event too. It was a really big event this year, but it was very well organized. It ran like clockwork. We had a good portion of our police department there as well, again to make sure everyone was safe, make sure that all of our modes of transportation, both feet, both wheels and rail, got along well that day, and it did. It went really well.
What about the Strawberry Fair?
The Strawberry Fair is that's a hallmark of our community, and I wish I had my new patch on my uniform. We just changed patches for our uniform, and we actually, when we asked the officers if they wanted to design a new patch for a uniform. Shoulder patches on uniforms are very, very sentimental to officers who wear them. The patch that I'm currently wearing was designed by retired Chief Billy Martin back in the 80s, I believe. And it represents the great seal town of Ashland and represents some of the landmarks. But we looked at our current patch, and our officers decided that the current officers wanted to design something that represented what they felt was their heritage, mainly for the 150th anniversaries we did it. And one of the symbols they used was a strawberry. So, you got to look at that in the context that the Strawberry Fair is a lot of work, mainly for the volunteers who have to work year-round to put the Strawberry Fair together, and a very dedicated group of volunteers. But it's a tremendous amount of work for the police department, too, again, to make sure that vehicle traffic, the foot traffic, and the rail traffic all get along well in harmony that day. And for the officers to take and put the symbol of the Strawberry Fair symbol on the patch that they wear on their uniform, it shows a lot of love for that Strawberry Fair, and I think it's a neat event.
Did you ever work at a booth or anything? Does the police department have booths there?
We had a crime prevention booth this year. I believe we've had a booth there for the last couple of years, but I know we definitely had one this year. And I came out for a little bit this year with my family and my parents and my children, my wife, and she brought her mom, and we had a great time this year walking around the Strawberry Fair. And we had all of our officers who were assigned are out, and They had a couple of officers on the bikes riding around, interacting with people, and again, making sure that everyone was safe and secure. That's the biggest thing we want at some of these events, is not to have a overbearing presence, but to have enough of a presence that if there is someone who wants to take an opportunity to commit a crime, that maybe they'll see that presence and realize this is not the place and keep on moving. So that's why, in addition to traffic safety, why we are definitely present at some of these events, including street parties, including Bluemont and things along those lines, is to make sure that everybody feels that, hey, we're safe here. We've got the Ashland Police here and we're safe. So
what are you planning for the 150th celebration?
Well, we are doing whatever we can do as a police department to help support the 150th Events Committee. We have changed, as you see, I have my 150th anniversary badge on today, which was just unveiled this past Tuesday night at our promotional ceremony. So we are joining in the spirit as well. Our patch, which this uniform unfortunately doesn't have the new patch sewn on it yet, it will be by next week, reflects that as well. So we are just trying to make sure that as much as we would like to get involved creatively, excuse me, got tongue-tied there for a minute. We want more to support those who are creative in the community. We just want to be there to provide whatever logistical support we can for folks, traffic safety and security at events and things along those lines, and provide any ideas if folks need it. We have some creativity, but there are a lot of folks in our community that have a lot more creativity than I do. So again, we just want to show whatever support we can to the 150th Events Committee. And again, to wish the town a happy birthday. It's a pretty big event.
What do you think are some of the major organizations involved in the town?
I can't think of any major organization in the town that's not involved. And that is the special thing about Ashland. And I hate to keep harping on that, but you have a community which is very involved in everything that happens in the town. And so I really can't think of any one organization, major organization, that's not involved.
What are some of your fondest memories of Ashland since you've been here? Are there any special ones that stick out to mind?
I think the fondest memories, I have two. One was the day that the Ashland Police Department became internationally accredited. Town police departments in the nation, in Virginia, wherever, usually don't get the same amount of respect and admiration as a big municipal police department, or as much respect as a state police organization or such like that, because it's smaller. It has nothing to do with the professionalism of the agency, but it's just smaller. You're a little smaller on the map. But when our officers stepped up, and every officer was involved, when they stepped up and did what it took to become nationally accredited, which is a huge endeavor. There's only 23 police agencies in the state that are nationally accredited out of almost 400. So that should give you a pretty quick litmus test of how hard this process is. When this agency became nationally accredited, we're not only the 23rd, we're the smallest in the state to become internationally accredited through an agency called the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement, and goes by CALEA for short. So that now puts the Ashland Police Department in the same ranks as the Hanover County Sheriff's Office, which is my alma mater, the Henrico Division of Police, which is just south of us, the Fairfax City Police Department, the Virginia State Police, Alexandria, Arlington. It puts us in that league of police departments that have been long known for their innovation and their professionalism. And it made me very proud to be part of this organization. The second most fond memory I have of this police department, we have a street, a section of town that unfortunately in the past has been known to have some drug problems that come into the street. And so we took a very strong initiative back in January of this year to step up not only our patrols, but our involvement with the community. By having a community meeting, by putting surveys out to the community, by increasing our patrols, by meeting with citizenry, really to try to get at the root of what the problem was in that neighborhood, and to see what the citizens needed to feel safe. And we had a lot of good feedback. And one of the input from the citizens, which should be common sense for most police departments, but it was good to hear it from the citizen as well, as the citizen said in a public meeting that we had with them, is we need to have more instances of good interaction between our police department and our citizens down here. And it needs to be very visible. So we need to show those who have less than good intentions for our street who is in charge. And it's the good neighbors of the street who's in charge. It's their neighborhood. It's ours to serve them, but it's their neighborhood. And one day we had two of our bike officers, Scott Menzies, who's now a sergeant in our organization, and Andy Kane, who's an officer in our organization. Were on their bikes. It was cold, so they were bundled up on their patrol bikes. And on the back of one of their bikes, they had strapped a football as they were riding out. And I would pay anything to have had a camera that day. And I asked, guys, where are you going with a football? Well, we're going down to play with the kids. There's some kids out, and we're going to go throw football with them. Well, gosh, you could have just bought me for a nickel at that point, because these guys, no one told them to do that. No one asked them to do that. It was these guys who on the spur of the moment said, hey, we've got an opportunity here to have a positive interaction with some of the kids in this community, and we're going to take it. It was carpe diem to the nth degree. And they went down there and played football with these kids for about an hour. They were available for calls for service. They were available if should anyone need assistance from an Ashland police officer during that time. But they took an hour of discretionary time, and instead of sitting still or sitting in a police car, they were out in the cold weather with a football playing with these kids, monitoring their radio the entire time in case someone needed assistance or a 911 call came in. But that was probably one of my proudest moments of being here. And in the grand scheme of things, it would never make the front page of a paper. It probably wouldn't even make the back page of a paper. But to me, it shows the heart of the Ashland Police Department to see those guys riding out of the parking lot from the police station with a football strapped to the back of a patrol bike. That showed me that they truly cared. And I think that's representative of every member of the Ashland Police Department.
How many members are there?
We have 25. From myself, we have 25 sworn law enforcement positions, from myself down to the newest officer. We have 3 full-time civilian positions, and we have a handful of part-time folks who are, when you talk about part-time, you usually don't think of really integral to the organization, but in this instance, they are. Our part-timers are integral to our operation. They watch our front desk during the evening and nighttime hours, and also during the holidays and on the weekends. So our full-time folks can get a break, and we couldn't do it without them. And so they are really key to our success. They serve as kind of a clearinghouse on the nights and weekends for not only police department matters, but any other town matters. People can come and ask for support from any of the other town departments, and our support services folks can kind of point them in that direction.
What kind of programs do you have for the community? Do you have any programs?
Right now, we have 7 neighborhood watch programs active in the community, and we are. It is my goal this year to increase that by 4. So by the end of 2008, to have 11 neighborhood watch communities. That's my goal, and it might be an aggressive goal, but it's my goal and the goal for this agency nonetheless. Because I truly believe in the power of neighborhood watch. Neighbors looking out for neighbors, you can't beat that. We tell them we need their eyes and ears, because we can't be omnipresent. As much as I'd love for the police department to be omnipresent, we can't be everywhere in 7.2 square miles. Even though Ashland is fairly small geographically, 7.2 square miles, we can't be everywhere at one time. So by increasing our neighborhood watches, that would be wonderful. We offer child seat installations for new parents, well, for any parent for that matter, who needs a child seat. Maybe they feel like they just didn't do it right the first time, need some help, and that's not an enforcement. That's not a come in so we can scowl at you that you did do it right the first time. That's so we can actually help you put the seat in. It's hard. It's hard being a parent. And so if we can offer a little bit of assistance there to get those seats installed properly, and more importantly, to teach the parent how to do it right the next time, That's wonderful. We also do bike rodeos and bike safety sessions. We've already done 2 this spring, and those were very successful. We had a grant through the Bike Safety of Virginia organization to give out bike helmets. So we were able to give out a lot of bike helmets during those first 2 bike rodeos, and we still want to do more this summer.
Do you have any future plans for the department?
I think just getting us more involved in the community. We have started an initiative this fall, this winter, and into the spring and summer now. Officer Doug Jenks, who is now a sergeant with our organization, has been doing a lot with the youth of our organization. He's got a real heart for kids. And we've had, in partnership with the college, we've used the alumni gym on a couple of occasions to have kids versus cops basketball games. It's more kids versus kids, and the cops are there to play every now and then, which is fine. And I think some of the cops have had some sore muscles the next morning when after the games, and it hasn't been organized as such as we have teams and things like that. But it's more of a come in and play pickup and get to interact with the police officers again. That making those positive interactions possible between the police department and the kids. We also hosted recently our 2nd annual skateboard competition, which is unique for a police department to host a skateboard competition. And so I vision, instead of doing it annually, that might be something that might become twice a year. But I definitely want to get us more involved in the community. We are already very involved. Again, it's hard not to be involved in Ashland. You really got to try hard not to be involved in Ashland. But we just want to get out there more. Again, increase the neighborhood watch programs. We want to hopefully start a volunteer contingent that could help us out during some of these big events, like we already talked about, the Christmas parade, the Strawberry Fair, some of the multiple runs we have during the fall of the year, as well as the big 150th celebration. There's so many people who are out there that have some time on their hands, whether they be retirees or whether they just have time on their hands because of life circumstances, that want to help. And so we want to try to tap into that very valuable resource. We're going to continue to work with the campus, not only in safety and security measures, but this year was the first year that anyone can recall that we actually had an intern. We had an intern from Randolph-Macon in the springtime, and it was a win-win. We got a lot of good hard work out of the intern, and the intern got a few college credit hours. So, that's oversimplifying it, but that's something that we're going to continue as well.
For my final question, what do you think makes Ashland so special?
The tight-knit community. You have a community that I think if you took all the cars out of Ashland, you'd still have that tight-knit community, because the density makes it so you can walk pretty much anywhere you want to go. So you've got that one-on-one communication, but you've got, even though you have that Mayberry-like feel, you still have folks like Lori Foley, who's really on the technological forefront of communication in the town of Ashland. So I think you have the best of both worlds, and I think that's really what makes Ashland so special, is that you have a 21st century Mayberry. Right here in the heart of the Central Virginia area. And I think that's what people are really looking for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.